Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. This is the lineup brought to you live at the Athletx Sports Group Studios in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm joined this evening by Anthony Grassi.
How we doing, Rick?
Good. Thanks again for joining us on this fine Elite 8 Monday.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I know the games are going to be starting here pretty soon, so hopefully the audience sticks with us for a little while, for at least the next hour or so.
Yeah, we'll see.
How's your pools doing?
Done. I had a good first round, and then once Oral Roberts and Ohio and Illinois got knocked off, I was off the cliff.
Yeah, there was a lot of upsets this year, and everybody's pools were. I think I read somewhere where there was no perfect pools after like halfway through the second round, right?
Yeah, and I think they've already set the record for most. What is technically defined as an upset. I think they've already set the record, and we've still got however many games to go. So it'll be fun.
Well, I was looking pretty smart for a while. I didn't have the Big Ten teams doing very well at all from the beginning. Even including my beloved Ohio State Buckeyes. They went out round one, and
I thought you had them going out round one, but I picked them going out round two as a Florida fan.
I did. I had them going out round two. And I had all of the Big Ten, basically. I had nobody reaching the Final Four, the Elite Eight. And unfortunately, my nemesis is the only one that reached that far. We won't mention their names. But, at the end of the day, we want the Big Ten to do well. So go Big Ten. How's that? That's the best I can do. All right, let's get the show started off tonight. We're going to recap some things that happened over the weekend that we found pretty noteworthy. We're going to start it off with our TBS number 10 12U ranked team, the Parkland Pokers. They played an event this weekend. They went 1-1 in pool play. That got them the 6th seed. And then when it counted in bracket play, they ended up going 4-0, and including a 1-0 win over our TBS honorable mention, Weston Travel Baseball. So a good weekend for the boys from Parkland. A thing of note here, both Parkland and Westland will be at the TravelBall Nationals June 15th through the 20th right here in Kentucky. So two very good teams will be heading this way to battle it out with the big boys. And I forgot to mention last week we talked about our number 1 and number 2 12-year-old teams met up in a game, the East Cobb Astros and the Texas Florida Canes. Those two teams will be here in Kentucky as well. So Loaded. Yeah, that 12-year-old team is going to be the best 12-year-old event in the country. If you're not in that event, you're not considered one of the big boys. I mean, that is absolutely top to bottom. Probably, I've been doing this tournament for 10 years. That's one of the strongest, if not the strongest age group.
Top to bottom?
Top to bottom I've ever had. It's crazy. But the other thing of note, last week we talked with Allie Henkowski from the softball side. And we mentioned a young girl out of Georgia, Ainsley out of Georgia. And over the weekend, she threw a 4-inning no-hitter. And you can see the stats right there on the screen for what she did over the weekend. And 4 innings, and her pitch count was extremely low. So congratulations to her. Nice job, young lady, on the 4-inning no-hitter over the weekend. All right. Well, spring training is upon us. It's almost over. We're going to be kicking off the Major League season coming up here this week. And we have decided here at the lineup that we are going to talk about a little Major League Baseball and some things that are going to happen, or what we think are going to happen throughout the year. We're going to be Nostradamus here, and we're going to talk a little bit about a few things going on in Major League Baseball. And it's always fun to look back at this and kind of see who was right and who was wrong. And
who was really wrong.
And who was really wrong, right. Right. So, start off, everybody's excited about the season, right? It got shut down last year with COVID, shortened season. They ended up coming back and playing the World Series, and the Dodgers ended up winning the World Series. Insert yawn here. I like the Dodgers, but it's not a very good thing for the small market teams when teams like that win.
When the big dogs that are spending the most money.
Yeah, it's not a fan of that, but it happens. You can't stop it. can't stop it. So let's make some predictions. Let's have some fun here, Anthony, and talk about some things coming up for the season. We'll start off, with what everybody wants to see is the long ball. So, who's some people, or who do you think is going to be the home run leader for 2021?
So I'll go a little off the radar. I've got two names, both NL guys, but given the short
Both
season,
NL guys.
Yeah, I just picked two names. Obviously,
Interesting.
They both can't win the same award, but I just picked two names, guys that had good 19s and years prior.
Sure.
20 wasn't the best year for them. And so on my paper here, all I wrote down was, hey, remember Trevor Story?
I do. Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, big guy, hits. I mean, you're playing in Colorado, you've got a little...
You're going out on a limb there with...
a little bit. Well,
yeah, Colorado helps.
Yeah, he's got a little home field advantage.
Trevor
in the
Story.
truest sense of the word. But
Interesting. So is that a pick or is that a dark horse?
That's probably, of the two, that's probably the dark horse.
Dark horse,
the latter
okay.
is probably a more
of a solid pick.
Yeah, and I'm going to let my Homer college pick show. And the other name I have written down is, hey, remember Pete Alonso?
Pete Alonso, yeah.
Obviously, the Mets are now much more loaded than they definitely were 2 years ago. But we got a guy who I think led the majors in 19 in home runs as a very young prospect. And 20 probably wasn't the greatest, but that's going to be my 21 pick for home run champ. Obviously, there's probably more high-profile guys, and we'll definitely get to some of those as we get through other awards and things like that.
Now, folks, I can tell you this, that Anthony and I have not compared our picks before the show. We have done these in secretive, and we're unveiling them here to each other for the first time right here on the show. So he has Trevor Story. He has Pete Alonso. And, his moniker was, hey, do you remember? Well, I've got one for you. Hey, do you remember Mike Trout?
Yeah, I've got him written down. We'll get to him, I imagine, very, very shortly.
So Mike Trout's my AL pick.
Consensus, probably favorite?
Probably, right now, probably the best player, all-around player in the game, in my opinion.
No doubt.
But my NL pick is a name you might be familiar with. My NL pick is Pete Alonso.
How about that?
So we are in agreement with that, with Pete Alonso. My sleeper is coming out of Washington, and Juan Soto. He's my sleeper. Nice young kid. I think he's going to do well as far as, getting a full year in underneath him. I look for him to do some big things. I don't know if he'll quite get over the top this year, but I look for him to do some big things. Folks, if you got an opinion or if you have some comments that you want to discuss during the show, you can text us on the Ticket Text hotline. That number is 915-228-2785. Let us know who you think is going to be the home run leader this year, and let us know about your picks as well as we go along on the show. All right, let's move on to one of the things I want to talk about, like most overrated player in Major League Baseball. And I've got a long list on this one here, and it was hard to narrow down who the most overrated player is, but I went with two guys, one national leaguer, one American leaguer, and my most overrated players are Giancarlo Stanton from the Yankees and Manny Machado from San Diego.
Interesting.
Yeah, those guys got big price tags, and I just don't think they live up to them. So, that's my guys there.
Yeah, I'm going to make one, and it's going to hurt a lot as a fan of a particular team from the city of brotherly love, but it seems as if the
I know where this is going.
$1 zillion Bryce Harper deal is not going too hot.
Yeah, I know where this is going.
Not going too good. So
he was on my list to be considered.
He's probably on a lot of people's list. If you were to go through, 5 maybe, you'd probably get the consensus on there. Obviously, you're hoping for a bounce back year and a more regular format season, but
in fairness to Bryce, though, he has a lot of expectations on him,
incredibly high. Yes.
Yeah, so while we consider him being overrated, is most guys would kill for the years that he puts up that we consider overrated. So I cut him a little slack. I'm not saying he was on my original list. I'm not gonna lie, he was on my original list. But the more I thought about it, I took him off. But I can definitely see that you get that a lot.
Yeah, and there might be a little of personal gripe in my selection. But
May or may be.
That's the way it goes, I guess.
All right. What about let's go to the guys on the mound that toe up the rubber here. Your top pitchers for this upcoming season, 2021.
So I'll go. Yeah, we'll go one from each league since I guess that's how we'll run through these.
Sure.
I'll go from the NL. I will start with DeGrom. I guess we'll stay in the NL East. Probably one of the favorites, if not the favorite, for NL Cy Young.
I've got to comment on DeGrom here in just a second, but go ahead.
Oh, I'll go ahead, take it.
No, go ahead, because it's a different topic, but go right ahead. Keep on. What about the American League?
I guess we'll take it. So, my pick. So we'll go with this. My pick that I wrote down for my Cy Young AL Cy Young, if I can get the words out, was Ryu.
Was who?
Ryu.
Oh, Ryu.
Yeah, he's playing in Toronto.
Yeah. Interesting.
He had a good year last year. He's been kind of right there. I'm pretty sure he finished third or fourth, but he finished top 5 in voting last year.
It's not a name you hear brought up very often. So
no, but I was going to pick Shane Bieber, and I figured that would be too easy to pick the back-to-back.
I've got a couple of guys. They're probably chalk picks. Garrett Cole. I really like his stuff.
I imagine if Bieber's not the favorite, Cole's probably the guy.
And then Trevor Bauer. Bauer, if he could just concentrate on playing baseball and leave everything else alone, then I think he would be so much more effective. But he just can't seem to do that.
I don't know. I guess I go back and forth. Like part of it is he's good because he is who he is.
Yeah,
that's part of the
mantra.
Our experience is all the other stuff that comes with it. So he's
part of the mantra.
Yeah, and I imagine we'll get some other guys that have some interesting personalities. And
now you mentioned Jacob deGrom earlier, and here's my take on deGrom.
Yes, go off.
I'm going to preface it with this though. So let's start with this question: do you think a pitcher will win 20 games in 2021 season? Mind you, I'm talking a full season, not shortened.
Full 162.
Yeah, full 162. Do you see a 20-game winner?
I'll say yes. I think
you do.
Yeah, I think there were. Don't ask me to pick who it is because I will definitely get that wrong. But there's probably enough guys on here on teams that don't have super deep rotations where a number one is far and away the number one that may exceed our expectations, which we'll probably get to in a little bit, and he by necessity may be out there a little more.
So here's my take on deGrom.
Go ahead.
Right? Here's my take on deGrom. If he was on a better team, he'd win 25 games. Not just 20, he'd win 25. His stuff is that electrifying and that good. And it pains me every time that he gets taken out of a game because you inevitably know that the bullpen's not going to hold that lead. You know, it cost him a ton of games over the last few years. So while I don't think there's going to be a 20-game winner in 2021, I would preference that by if deGrom was to get traded to, if he played for the Dodgers or if he played for the Yankees, he'd win 25 games, flat out, no question about it. So interesting. I just don't think that you're going to see the way the rotations are nowadays and how, right now pitchers go 7 innings and they bring in the bullpen and I just don't trust them. I just don't trust bullpen. So that's why I don't think there's going to be a 20-game winner. I think you might see 18 might be the tops. And you might hit that 19-game stage and a bullpen blows it for the 20th, but that's what I think is going to happen with that. We skipped one. We talked about players being overrated. On the flip side, underrated. We've got some underrated players out there, and I've got some underrated. I've got 3 of them that I listed that I think that are underrated. And the first one, people are going to say that I'm crazy because they probably don't consider him as being underrated, but it's Mookie Betts. Large contract in LA, but he doesn't grab the headlines and the likes of everybody else. You don't see the glamour and the grit and the glitz that a Mike Trout gets or some of the other guys, and he just quietly does his business. So
he's floating under the radar at
well,
top top 10 players.
Yeah, that's why I said it's kind of,
But no, I get what you mean.
he just doesn't get the attention that the top guys do. And then a couple of guys, one that I think just works really hard, doesn't get the respect he deserves, is Freddie Freeman out in Atlanta. Love his game. I love what he does down there. He goes about his business quietly and gets the job done. And then the third one out of Chicago is Tim Anderson. Great ball player. I love watching him play, and he just doesn't seem to get the notoriety that he deserves. In my opinion, he's one of the best players, all-around players in the game.
Do you think that's part of the lack of success that the White Sox have had?
I'm sure it is.
Jimenez,
sure.
Obviously, Jimenez was on the...
Just got hurt.
Yeah,
he just got hurt.
So they seem like they have a few guys that kind of have flown under the radar by the team being not that high profile.
Yeah, but then you turn around and look at Trout, right? What have they won?
Also true.
He doesn't win, but he seems to be keeps his name in the limelight a lot, and he's able to still be considered one of the best players in the game. So, I do agree that's probably Tim Anderson's problem, but it doesn't seem to affect Trout that way. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. The White Sox, I think, are going to be a little bit of a sleeper this year as well. Which brings us to our next point. Let's go through the divisions here real quick.
Let's do it.
NL East. Let's see. Who do you got winning the NL East and in that division over there?
Well, as a Phillies fan, I will not say the Phillies. I'll go
I
there.
wouldn't say the Phillies.
But I'm going to go with the hype train. I'm going to pick the Mets against everything that you just said about Jacob deGrom. I imagine the Braves are the popular pick, but for feel's sake and riding the hype train, I will take the New York Mets to win the AL East.
Well, we're disagreeing in that. I'm totally opposite. I got the Braves winning that division with the Mets coming in second. And it's all because I don't think deGrom has enough help there. He could, if they get help, they'll win that division. If they don't, they're not going to win it. The Braves are young, they're talented, they're hungry, and they play the game for the most part. I know Acuna gets a little bit of slack for taking some time off, but it's just a different world that we live in right now. But that team top to bottom, if nothing happens, everything stays part of the course. Braves will win that division. Mets will try to give some pressure, but I think they'll fade at the end unless deGrom gets some help.
All right, well, let's move on. We'll go NL Central. What do you got taking that?
NL Central. This is I think the division that nobody wants. I had to pick someone, so I picked the Brewers. I got the Cardinals coming in second. It's I don't know if it's a trendy pick or just the last man standing in that division or what it is, but don't hold me to this one. Out of the 6th division, this is the one I probably just flipped a coin, and I just don't think nobody stands out.
I'll go with you and actually ended up with the Brewers as well.
Oh, look at that.
Not comparing notes, but we are 1 for 2. I think it's just one of those weird and somebody's going to come out of this division and probably shock us and win a series in the playoffs, and we're going to be sitting here in September or October being like, what did we miss?
We got a division like that in the American League too that we'll talk about here in a few minutes.
Oh, yeah. So let's head out west into the division that we probably are in agreement again in the NL West.
I bet you we're not.
Okay.
I bet you we're not. You're probably going to say the Dodgers.
Yep. I think it's a lot of high payroll, a lot of big name guys, a lot of talented guys. And over the course of 162, I think it ekes out whoever may be behind them who you pick.
Well, listen, I'm going to start off by saying this. I think the 2 best overall teams in the entire baseball world reside in this division. It's the Dodgers and the Padres. Unfortunately, they're in the same division because I would love to see that as a World Series. I think they're the 2 best teams. They're going to have some great matchups going out throughout the season. But I think what the Padres has done, they've got the up-and-coming star in Tatis. Love that kid, his work ethic. I know he's a hot dog sometimes, and some people get on him about that. But instead of saying he's a hot dog, I think he has a passion for the game. So I really love Tatis over there. And I'm going to go with the Padres. I'm going to go with the Padres in the upset. I know I'm in the minority in this. Everybody loves the Dodgers. I do think the Dodgers will earn the wild card. So if that's any consolation, I think that's what's going to happen there. And then it's anything can happen once you get into the playoffs. But I've got the Padres followed by the Dodgers.
Yeah, I would imagine if I was picking my two wildcard teams, the Padres would definitely be the first wildcard team in. That race out west will probably be one of the fingers crossed will be the one to watch. And in reality, they'll probably be playing for the best team in the NL, if not the best record in Major League Baseball.
I think so. I think that's what you're going to find there. All right, let's switch gears over to the American League East. Man, it just seems like you could stamp one team at the top of this division for years and years and years. It doesn't always work out that way, though.
Right, yeah, and I imagine we're both going to pick the New York Yankees.
I am going to pick the Yankees, followed by Tampa Bay, and hopefully Tampa Bay gives them a run for the money. I'm not a Yankees fan. They, their motto is we don't develop players, we just go out and buy them. And I know it's a little harsh, but to me, that's the way it seems. This way it seems. I know people are going to say, yeah, but Jeter came up through the. Okay, I get that. But for the most part, and listen, Dodgers aren't no different. They're out there spending the money. They're doing all of that. So I do believe it's going to be the Yankees, but I'm hoping Tampa gives them a run.
Yeah, I've got the Yankees as well. As I said, if you had to pick a second team, Tampa Bay seems like the favorite behind the Yankees as the top two dogs in the AL East. We'll pick the Central. And who do you got? Is this your other division that nobody wants to win?
Yeah, nobody wants to win this one. So, I really want to say the Tigers. My hometown team, I want to say the Tigers. I'm not going to, but that's who I want to say. I tell you what, mark my word, the Tigers remind me a lot of the Braves from a few years ago when the Braves were really bad, but they had the young kids coming up. And I'm going to tell you guys, in a couple of years, the Tigers are going to be really, really, really good. They've got Torkelson. They've got a pitching staff that is going to be second to none with Mize and Manning. And they got a couple other guys over there that are just going to, once they get some seasoning underneath them and get some games and some experience, the Tigers are going to be something else to watch here. About 2 years I give them. Unfortunately, I wish I could pick them, but I'm not going to. But my picks for the American League Central are going to be, flip a coin here. It's the Twins and the White Sox. I'm going to go with the Twins. They just seem to just do it quietly. Not really heralded players. They go out and do their business. They go get a win. They go home. And I don't know what they do when they go home. They're in Minnesota, for crying out loud. What's there to do in Minnesota? I don't know.
Yeah, Minnesota in the summer. I guess you're out on a lake.
Out on a lake. One of the, 10,000?
Yeah.
One of the 10,000 lakes that are in Minnesota.
I actually have the Twins as well.
Really?
Yes.
I think the popular pick here is probably the White Sox.
They're probably the more trendy pick.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, like you said, the Twins seem to do it year in, year out, under the radar. Even though they have the reigning AL Cy Young winner in Shane Bieber, I just think the firepower that their team has in a division that is going to be overlooked a lot based on the other four divisions. I think they're just gonna show up, and we will see how the postseason goes with them.
Yeah, I bet you probably 85, 87 games will win that division. I just don't see. There's a lot of parity in that division, and which is good for baseball. It'll make for an interesting race, pennant race, or a division race for sure. All right, AL West. What do you got here?
I'm gonna take the best player in the game. I'm gonna take the Angels.
Stop it right now. You took the Angels?
I don't know if that's a really, really bad pick or if it's a sneaky good pick. It's one of the two, and I don't know which one it is, but I'm going to take the Angels.
Hopefully great minds think alike, because I picked the Angels as well. I think this is the year that Trout puts it all together with his teammates, and I think that they're going to come out on top in that division. I know the trendy pick is Houston. Houston's made a lot of enemies, banging on trash cans and whatnot over the couple of years. So I don't know if that kind of leads to my pick. I'm not pulling for him, but I went with the Angels. Interesting that you decided to go with the Angels too. He's got to put it together one year, right? Well, listen, let me clarify that. Trout he puts it together every year, but I'm saying his team has got to put it together.
The organization has to put it together around.
If I want somebody to win a World Series ring, right now high on my list is Trout. So I'm pulling for him.
Yeah,
I'm
I'd
pulling
imagine
from.
the entire baseball world is outside of their particular fandom. They're probably pulling for Mike Trout to win one
Yeah.
over.
Yeah. All right. Well, here it is. World Series time. Who do you got? Who do you got and why?
All right. I have the chalk cliche
Oh no.
betting favorite pick written down: Dodgers Yankees.
Dodgers Yankees.
It's if you were to look anywhere, I imagine any favorite list of who's going to win, those two teams are probably very, very, very high on the list.
Yeah, and you know what? Baseball, honestly, I bet you baseball, that's who they want. They want Dodgers, Yankee, two big market teams. Television ratings will be through the roof. They will just salivate over that type of matchup, Dodgers, Yankees. You know, I think it's going to be the Padres or the Dodgers, one of them against the Yankees. And I hesitate to take the Yankees because, man, they just lately they've got all this talent and all this money that they spend, but they can't make
nowhere.
It gets nowhere.
Relatively to winning the World Series,
Right?
Put that in context.
Let's face it. When you spend that much money,
right? Yes.
anything short of the World Series is not acceptable.
Right.
So, I just my brain tells me that it's the Yankees. Or my heart tells me the Yankees. My brain's telling me don't do it because they're going to screw something up along the way.
Yeah, and as I read my pick out loud, my brain is telling me there's no possible way that the chalk can be that chalk.
Well,
but
the two biggest payrolls in baseball, right? Dodgers, Yankees.
Yeah.
And if it's not the two, it's two of the biggest. Is that if that happens? Again, I know that's what Major League Baseball wants, but is that really good for the game? Is it good for the small market teams to have the bullies on the street to come in there and just buy their teams and whatever they want? So I don't know if it's the right thing or a good thing for baseball to see the Dodgers and Yankees from a purist standpoint. Hey, listen, from a marketing standpoint and financial standpoint, I get it, Dodgers, Yankees. But from a purist standpoint, I don't know if that's good for the game.
I guess you could argue either way. It's probably good for Major League Baseball and for the sport as a whole. For often enough, the two biggest market teams with the two biggest payrolls with the best collection of players to be in the World Series against each other at one time. It's probably better for the growth of the game and all that stuff. But to what you were saying about the smaller market teams, the Rays were in it last year, and they may have one of the smaller budgets.
They did.
It's better that if it were every year that the top 5 payrolls were in the World Series, 2 of the top 5 teams were in the World Series, I think that would be bad because it would basically send the message that if you're not one of those 2 teams, what does it matter? And I guess you could argue basketball has that to an extent with basically the Warriors, now the Lakers, and basically
and
the
the
teams
Nets
that have all the best players.
Yeah,
the collection of best players, and obviously vastly different sport and how they spend the money and all that stuff. But I think it's good to have the favorites in there often enough that you remember that they are in the forefront of the regular sports fan outside of just the baseball sports fan's mind of these are the good teams, these are the good players, and it just kind of helps keep baseball's awareness above the 4th place sport.
And I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there that take the approach that I don't care who wins as long as it's not the Yankees or the Dodgers.
There are plenty of people, and if we're being honest, that may, in a weird backwards way, boost the ratings because people are going to hate watch.
Right, hate watch,
and
exactly.
Hope that the Yankees blow it, or hope that the Dodgers blow it, depending on which side of the aisle you fall on.
So if you're not a fan of one of those 2 teams, you basically got 28 other teams that you're pulling for, as long as one of those 2 don't win it.
Yeah.
So, well, there you have it, folks. There you've got our predictions for 2021. Let us know what you think about those predictions. If you agree with them, if you think we're crazy, you can text us at 915-228-2785. Let us know what you think in a polite way. If we got it right, we got it wrong, and we'll look back on this show at the end of the season and kind of see what we did. Surprisingly, we had a few of the picks the same. So I'm baffled we picked the Angels the same. That
we both probably had the same
mindset.
Yeah, we're pulling for the best player.
Great minds think alike. That's what I keep telling everybody. All right, let's get into our next topic, talking about Major League Baseball. We're going to move on, and Major League Baseball has decided that they are going to experiment with some rules for the upcoming 2021 season, different rules at different levels of play. Excuse me. And the first one we're going to start off with is the rule for AAA. And Anthony, why don't you tell us a little bit about what that rule is going to be this year?
So the rule for AAA is they are increasing the bases, first, second, and third, from 15 inches, 15 square inches to 18, and they're making it a less slippery surface. The stated goal being the safety of the players. The hopeful,
that seems to be the excuse for everything they do is safety, right? We're doing it in the name of safety.
Yes, but there's the secondary goal of, and I'll read it right from the article I found on MLB.com. It said the 3 inches would theoretically lead to more ground balls and bunts getting beat out at first base, and perhaps more successfully stolen base attempts, thereby increasing both base traffic and action. So they are, in the name of safety, they are hoping that it increases offensive activity to spark more interest in the game itself.
Yeah, I'm interested. They kind of come up with that take, 3 inches, making the base 3 inches larger. And listen, first of all, when I run from first base or home to first base, it's still 90 feet. The 3 inches doesn't start on that aspect. It's still 90 feet. Now, with the base being bigger in diameter, it doesn't make it 90 feet going to second base. I think it makes it, 89 feet, 6 inches, or whatever the case may be, because the base is actually bigger. I don't know if it's going to make that much difference on stolen bases. And
I can't imagine it makes an incredibly drastic, significant difference.
But here's my concern, and they talk about safety, right? So Major League Baseball a few years ago took a stand on safety with the double play. And the players used to talk about the phantom double play, the area play, right? If I'm in the area, they're going to go ahead and give me the tag of the bag. But now with instant replay, you have to tag the bag on a double play. Well, the runners are allowed to slide into the bag as long as they're within reach of the bag. Now you got a bigger bag, which means you've got more area to slide. And my fear is you're going to see more second basemen, more shortstops taken out, because if you make that 18 square inches instead of 15, now you are talking, because I can reach out and touch a base and still, take out that second base or shortstop. So I'm curious to see how they view the safety on that aspect of it. I get the other ones, but to me, this seems like a more dangerous.
I think the safety parameter or the main safety component that they're talking about is the plays at first base. I guess they were the greatest concern of having a guy getting his ankle stepped on. It gives the first baseman more room, even though it is 3 inches. I guess that is if you got 2 feet of your feet,
a
little bit more room. And I think they've been working this through I think this rule change specifically has been working its way up through the minor leagues. And I believe, if I remember correctly, I saw something that the first baseman in those I believe it was, Double A last year, or if it was independent the year before, they felt that they had more space to basically not get run over and not get an ankle stepped on. Whether that is true, I don't know if there's data out there to prove if the injuries at first base are down for that.
So to be clear, this rule here is only being done at a AAA level.
Correct.
Not anything else. And all these rules we're going to talk about are specific to that level. They're not throughout minor league baseball. They're specific to that level to get a good feel on how they go. So the AAA rule is the bigger bases. What's the next rule we got, Anthony?
So the next rule we have is for Double A, and it is probably, of all the rules that we're going to go through, the most, I don't know if controversial is the right word, but the most discussed.
Oh, it is.
It is the requirement that all 4 infielders have their cleats within the outer boundary of the infield dirt when the pitch is delivered. And I'll add this on to the half of it, is that they said that there is the possibility that Major League Baseball in the second half of the season, of the AA season, may require them to have 2 infielders on each side of second base.
Man, I tell you, I've got a huge problem with this. I really do. This is people crying because they're basically taking hits away from the hitters. Well, I got news for you, people. The job of this defense is to get you out. Hello? That's the job, is to get you out. So for you to tell me where I've got to play my defensive players, well, where's it going to stop? Where are they going to stop with the first baseman? Well, you got to stay within 2 feet of the bag. Come on. I don't like this rule. Never have liked it when they started talking about messing with the shifts. I'm a firm believer. If you don't like the shift, I tell you what, learn how to bunt down the third baseline, and they'll stop shifting real quick. So I don't like this rule, especially the second half of the season. Now they're going to make you put 2 players on each side of the bag. What are we doing here? What are we doing?
They said that that's a possibility. And there's, in all of these most of these rule changes, I should say, there are certain extensions that they may enact in the second halves of the season as they continue to experiment with these rules. With the shift, I was listening to somebody talk about this today, knowing that we were going to be going over this. The point of learn how to bunt down the baseline, I guess, whichever one.
Sure.
The data from the coaches or the analytics departments in
here we go with that word again.
No, they will say that they're basically, the players have said that their coaches don't want them to do that because the expected value of them getting a hit into the outfield is better than them dribbling a bunt down either baseline.
That's because they don't learn how to do it.
That may very well be true.
Oh my God, Billy Bean's got to be going absolutely nuts over this, right? Because all he cared about was people getting on base. He didn't care how they got on base. Why would you care how you get on base? Oh my God, these guys with their analytics and it kills me. You can tell I'm getting a little bit worked up over this. I hate this rule. I hate every ounce of this rule. I hate every being of this rule. Again, I can't stress enough. Defenses, that's their job, is to get you out. Pitchers, get you out. I mean, if you know a guy pulls the ball 99 times out of 100, if he's a left-handed hitter and he hits 99 times out of 100 between first and second base, why wouldn't you take that away from him? Oh, I just don't like it.
That does make a ton of sense.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about this rule? Text us, let us know. 915-228-2785 is the ticket text hotline, or you can comment on the Facebook Live page. I mean, do you guys like this rule? I think I'm in the majority. Maybe I'm in the minority. But, get it out. That's the job. That's the job. That's the name of the game.
So I got 2 things. One is the StatCast data from when guys are shifted against has shown that when their teams are shifted against, they have a higher whiff rate. Basically, they're swinging and a missing. Because they're probably trying to because they're trying to overswing, and they're trying to get it over the shift into the outfield so that they can get on base, because it's.
But now you're making my point for me, right? Now you're getting into the batter's head. You're getting into the batter's head, making him do something that he don't want to do. And again, what's the result? You're talking about it's a higher whiff rate, which is what? Higher outs, more outs. And correct me if I'm wrong, but what are we trying to do on defense?
They're trying to get people out.
You're trying to get people out. Look at that.
And so the important thing to put into context all of these experimental rule changes is what Major League Baseball said the purpose of the rule changes, I guess. And so
well, this one can't be safety.
No.
Okay.
So the president of on-field operations for Major League Baseball says this effort is an important step towards bringing to life rules changes aimed at creating more action and improving pace of play. And we'll get the pace of play thing, rules changes in a moment.
Listen. He is sugarcoating what he wants. They want more runs, right?
Yes.
Because what's exciting? Runs.
Well,
you want to see teams score more, get more hits, which leads to more runs. Come on, don't be blowing smoke up my backside here, because it has nothing to do with that. And your pace of play, if you get more hits, guess what happens to the games?
Last longer.
They go longer. Hello, they go longer.
So I'll push back on that a little bit. It does not say offensive action. So while we can assume, yes, they're talking about getting more runners on base, getting more hits.
Oh, that's absolutely what it is.
But when you and I have talked about this as we put our top 10 together, which we'll get to later in the show, as everybody loves the long ball, but the most exciting plays, and as we went through all the submissions that were sent in, the defensive plays were the more interesting plays, because
sure,
yes, home runs are exciting, but I mean, the home run is the home run. It's a ball getting hit over a fence, but the defensive plays are the more unique plays that you do not see all of the time. And some of the players, I guess, have pushed back on the shift, saying, especially the ones that have a higher prowess on defense.
Well, they should.
Saying, let me go play the game and let me be me, and if I'm playing shortstop, let me go dig one out and end up on SportsCenter top 10.
My guess is, if they hold this shift, if it ever saw the light of day in Major League Baseball, and listen, for the record, I don't think it will, but if it saw the light of day in Major League Baseball, you potentially, if you take the shift away from a pure power hitter, you're probably talking about raising his batting average 10, 15 points.
And that'll be the interesting thing, is as the rules change, it'll be interesting to look back, and I imagine the analytics people, which I imagine you love, will be able to go back and say, these power hitters would have been impacted, I guess the guys of the last 10 years would have been impacted negatively by X amount of points based on the shift. And you could probably, I'm not statistically advanced enough to figure that out, but it'll be interesting to see what the impact is of that. And I guess it'll be interesting to see what the specific rules are, because when the pitch is delivered, obviously guys can, move very slightly, but it'll be interesting to see how much guys try to game this system. If in the second half of the Double-A season they end up going, you have to have two guys on each side. It'll be interesting if they, scoot the second baseman in a very short right and have the shortstop basically stand one inch on the other
that's what's
side
going
of
to
second
happen.
base.
Sure, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and we'll get to some of these other ones that have been gamed already in other leagues and divisions, but I guess one thing it will do is it will forcibly increase defensive efforts by virtue of limiting what they are allowed to do. I think if they do enact it, I can't imagine it stays around forever. I think it'll probably be analogous to the NBA limiting zone defense. For a while, you could not. It was illegal for the NBA to run zone defense. They nailed it in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
And maybe one of those things that they do to try to shift the progression of the game, and then take it away at some other point once people get back up in arms every so often about, this is so terrible for the game. I know you said you don't think it's going to happen.
Well, and I'm right and everybody else is wrong. I don't like it. It's a dumb rule.
Well, I guess then I guess I'll pose the question to everybody else. If you are watching, let us know either by the text line that is on screen, by the email that is on screen, or in the comments, if you think the shift is going to be implemented, the limit on the shift is going to be implemented in Major League Baseball.
No way.
When do you think it would be implemented?
No.
I'd be interested to see what people say. Obviously, it's not this year. If we're 2 years out, if we're 5 years out, if we're never infinity out, as
all right,
Rick
let's go ahead and move on to some of the other rules that I could care less about. I've talked about the one that I care about. Now let's talk about the ones I don't care about.
So we'll go to high A, which is the requirement that pitchers must step off of the rubber to attempt a pickoff.
Dumb.
All right, very succinct.
Dumb. This rule's dumb. I don't know what we're trying to do here. Major League Baseball's trying to do and reinvent the wheel or something. I mean, a pitcher stepping off. Let me tell you guys something. I've never seen a pitcher, unless the runner fell asleep or tripped or just was totally out of his mind. By the time it takes a pitcher to step off and throw to a bag to pick someone off, he's not picking them off. So I don't understand what they're trying to do here. And you're giving the advantage to the runner. You're giving the advantage to the runner. because he knows that he's not going to be able to throw over there unless he steps off. So my guess is they're trying to increase stolen bases. That's my guess, right? I mean, it has to be.
I would imagine so. In reading a little about it, I believe part of the rule change is to clarify balks in this situation where pitchers are attempting to pick runners off. Now, I'm not the most baseball rules savant, self-admittedly, but I imagine if you walked into any ballpark in America at any level, and it probably happened to some of you this weekend, if there are any number of times that a pickoff tries to occur, that somebody will call balk, either the parent or the umpire, and no matter what, there's going to be an argument.
Sure.
It's one of those nobody really knows. So if the purpose of the rule is to clarify what the heck a balk is so that the average person can identify it on screen, we don't have to go to slow motion replay or have some rules expert explain the minute specifics of how we are defining balks. I think if it aims to clarify that, I think it's good. It's simple. But if it, I guess, to the point that we discussed earlier, all these actions seem to be to increase offensive action.
Offensive action. All right, let's go on to the next one.
So the final one we're going to talk about is the dreaded future of Skynet taking over baseball. It is in low A, Southeast, the automatic balls and strike system. And so for context, this was implemented, what I guess was in 19 in the Atlantic League.
It was.
It was used in the Arizona Fall League as well. So it is slowly working its way up the minor league baseball system. And it is what many fans, I imagine, begrudgingly are knowing is coming.
Yeah.
To some extent.
I know a couple of guys that work games behind the plate with these automated strike zones. They wouldn't go on record to make a comment of whether they liked it or not. I don't blame them. I don't particularly like it. But I mean, a strike is a strike. Takes a human element out of it. I think human element's part of the game, and we'll get into something about that in just a second. But there was a case. I don't know if it was last year, maybe not because of COVID, but 19, to where a pitch actually bounced. It actually bounced, but it was technically by rule a strike. It crossed into that automatic auto robot zone, and therefore it was a strike. And the optics didn't look very good.
So, yes, the optics of that are terrible.
Terrible.
So for clarity's sake, clear up what the automated strike zone is for those who may not be aware of what the...
Well, if you watch ESPN, they give you that 3D look, right? They take the plate and they go up and they go deep and they go down as far as the actual strike zone. I mean, by letter of the law, the strike zone is letters to knees, which we know that's not true, but that's the whole thing. And it gives you a 3D graph and it shows you the ball, and all it's got to do is barely touch that zone. So the ball is wide in itself, and all it's got to do is touch that zone. Well, this play that happened a couple of years ago was a slow breaking curveball that barely caught the front of the strike zone and bounced into the catcher's glove. Short hopped. I won't say bounced. It short hopped into the catcher's glove, but it triggered the automatic strike zone because it entered that 3-dimensional area, and they called it a strike. And a coach ended up getting ejected over that. So, nothing's perfect. Well, the strike automatic strike zone was supposed to be perfect, but I'm not a big fan of that. I want to leave it up to the umpire.
So then, I guess the two questions in the Rick Goff led minor league baseball rules system, would it be fixed by having a human override, basically in that event that a pitch is so egregiously not the strike that the umpire behind the plate who's getting the calls relayed into his ear, he can change the call? Well,
the umpire does have the discretion to override those calls, or they did. I don't know about coming up in 2021. Well, back in 2019, they did have the discretion to override the call. But if you're being told in your earpiece, I mean, you're talking about a split-second decision.
Correct.
You're being told in your earpiece it's a strike. Well, then you, as an umpire, are going to say that's a strike. Now, they did have the discretion, but I highly doubt if very many of them even used it, because then what's the purpose? If they're going to use the discretion, why would we have the automated strike zone?
And we're having an experimental rule, then why are we having it if it's not going into effect? The other possible change is, obviously, by the letter of the law, the strike zone is, as you described. Does it make sense then to alter that description for the automated version of the strike zone? Because you there's only so many different ways you can configure how the strike zone can be laid out. So I heard somebody else, I don't remember who, describe it this way. You have the system that you just talked about, where it's the 3D, call it pane of glass.
Sure.
From front to back of the plate, letters to knees, as is the letter of the law. And if it clips any part of that, it's a strike. Now, obviously, there's ways that can be gamed. If you throw a 12-6 high arcing curveball that clips the front bottom part or the back top part of the strike zone, that is virtually in the dirt or over the hitter's head, there's that way.
And
you can...
And listen, I don't want people to think that I'm not for change. If change helps the game, hey, I'm all for it. For example, I do believe instant replay is the right move in baseball.
Absolutely.
Get it right. Especially on egregious plays, such as the perfect game from the Tigers pitcher a few years ago, Galarraga.
Yes.
Instant replay gives him credit for a perfect game. In that sense, I'm a big proponent of it. What I don't like about an instant replay, or how this happens, it basically took the umpire-manager interaction completely out of the game, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Who doesn't love a great Billy Martin or an Earl Weaver argument with the umpire, telling them what they think and turning their hat backwards and kicking dirt? And instant replay is taking that away from me. Because if you argue an instant replay call, you're automatically ejected. No words, no nothing, you're gone, see you later. So, some of that change they made, I like instant replay. I don't like the effect. There's always a cause and effect, right? I don't like that of it. But, I'm sure they'll find and stumble across something out of these experiments that will stick. It's inevitable. You throw enough, what's the adage? If you throw enough crap against the wall, something's going to stick eventually. But I don't see, maybe the larger bags, maybe that makes its way to Major League Baseball. If they're using it in AAA, it's not that far. The other ones, I just don't see ever making it to the big leagues. But it's fun to talk about for sure.
It is. And one, I guess, potentially unintended consequence of this that we didn't touch on is the potential impact on the development of these guys in these various levels.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, in some of these, the larger base, that may impact the specifics of your rhythm, but 3 inches, over time you can adjust after, just repping that out. But like the balls and strikes, or the must step off to pick off, there's a couple other rules that, potentially have this impact. But like if you're a catcher in low A and your manager, your coaches, and everybody's developing you to, work on framing strikes better.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's kind of going out the window. So you're kind of trading, I guess, two skills,
that's a very good point.
Inverse relationship of the two skills. The ability to frame a pitch is going down drastically.
That's a great point, Anthony. I never even looked at it from that perspective.
And then some of the other rules, like if they have to step off to attempt to pick off a runner, and one of the other rules in low A that we didn't go over is there's a limit across all low A's. There's a limit on the amount of pickoff attempts per plate appearance. If you only have a certain amount of attempts to keep a guy there, and the catcher only has, there's no art of framing the pitch, the ability for a catcher to gun a guy out at second is that much higher for both of those reasons.
It makes it tougher, yeah.
So the value of, a catcher's pop time is going to be increasing, especially if these rules make their way up.
Well, yeah, it's going to make the catcher look bad. I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's going to make him look bad, and his throw-out ratio is not going to be as high. And it's no fault of his own. It's because of these rules that they're playing around with. Yeah, you're right. I mean, they're playing around with these rules, but they're also playing around with guys' careers who need to succeed. And they don't want to fail based on some experimental rules. So I hope they take that into consideration. Well, let's move on to the next one. We're running long here tonight, but we got some things that I want to get into, which brings me up to youth and some youth rules that we would like to see implemented or taken out completely or added or changed, and whatever the terminology may be. And man, the biggest one right off the bat, Anthony, is the age grade exception. And that's a hot topic all over youth baseball right now. And it is something that has come along in the last couple of years. I don't like it. Didn't agree with it. Here at TravelBall Select, we were the last organization to cave in and do the grade exception. And I'll be honest with you, the only reason I did is because everybody else did it. All the organizations across the country, and people were building their teams based on that, which prevented them from playing in TBS events. So I reluctantly had to change the rule in order to keep everybody uniformed across the board. But man, this is a big topic that I hear every week talking to coaches, and this is kind of how the conversation goes. Yeah, we played in a tournament this past weekend in interstate here. And we played inter-team here, and they had 4 kids that were grade eligible kids, and we didn't stand a chance, and I don't think that's right. And so that's how the conversations go. Anybody that's grade eligible kids, now these other teams talk down to them, talk bad about them, that they're cheating the system. Well, folks, I got news for you. They're not cheating the system. They're playing within the rules that the organization set forth. I fought it. I didn't do it for 1 year for sure, maybe 2 years. I wouldn't do it. I stuck to the grade eligible kids, or I'm sorry, age eligible kids. And I ultimately had to succumb to the pressure, peer pressure, right? That's what they say, peer pressure. But, when you're dealing, and I'll use 12-year-olds as an example. When you're dealing with a 12-year-old kid and you're just going by age, you're talking about a 365-day spread. And, when you're talking about grade, you're talking about a bigger spread as far as how many days this kid could be. You could literally have a kid that's a year and a half, 13 and a half years old playing against 12-year-olds. And at that age, man, that is such a big difference. And, but it's within the rules. So a lot of people don't like it. I don't like it, but, it's within the rules.
So as we talked about other rules changes, what other rules changes have you heard that people are potentially clamoring for in the youth game?
Well, everybody would wish that everybody get on the same page about the balk first to third move, right? Is it legal? Is it illegal? And these teams are getting a little frustrated because every week they play it's a different set of rules. And one of my biggest complaints, being a youth guy, is I wish there was a way to get youth and high school and college and pro baseball all on the same page on some of these, what I call basic rules. But it's never going to happen because everybody wants to say, this is my league and this is the way I'm going to do it. So I know there's a lot of frustrations week in and week out across the country on this first to third move. Is it a balk? Is it not a balk? It causes a lot of confusion. It causes a lot of anger sometimes with these teams. They get mad and they get upset. But that's one. Another one is there's a couple of loud voices out there that are they want the DH rule at the youth level. And I'm just not a big fan of that. And their excuse is, well, it gets more players in the game, right? Because you can bat 9, you can bat 10 with an extra hitter. And that's kind of what the purpose of the extra hitter was, to get more players in the game. Well, now they want to take it a step further and put a DH in, because on a standard 10-man lineup, now you've got 11 kids in the game. And, I call BS on a lot of that it's not a way to get another player in the game. They're just trying to DH for their weakest hitter. I mean, let's face it, that's what they're doing. Now, not everybody. Some people have good intentions. But for the most part, that's what you're going to do. You're going to DH for your weakest hitter. And what are you teaching the weakest hitter? You're not teaching him how to hit in those situations, right? I mean, he's got to learn how to develop those skills, kind of like what you talked about with the catcher framing pitches. He's got to learn to develop those skills, and he can't do it if he's being DH'd for.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if any of these, and we can go through a couple more of them that you have written down. But yeah, I find it hard to believe that that rule would be implemented. I don't know of anywhere that it has even tried it.
Nah, some people do. They do allow it. Again, it goes back to what I talked about, not being uniformed across the board. Some organizations do it, some don't. We just got a comment from Shane Howard here. Great exception rule is garbage. So, there you go. I mean, Shane is in agreement with me that it's garbage, and hopefully, in the next year or two. And listen, I get it in high school. Well, let me just preface it by that. I'm okay with it in high school. You play in your grade because that's how you get drafted. Is you get drafted in your grade class. But it has no business in the youth market, and how it funneled down to the youth market is beyond. Well, that's a lie. I know how it funneled down into the youth market, but that's for a whole other topic. I'm not going to get into it on this show.
We'll spend a whole nother episode doing all that stuff.
Yeah, it's I'll just, like Shane said, I'll just leave it at that as garbage, and we'll move on. Some of the suggestions we got from the audience as far as rules that they would like to see implemented is they want to make bat flipping illegal. Kids hit home runs and they flip their bat. They want to make it illegal.
Woohoo.
Yeah.
No fun, please.
Well, yeah, I get it. Right? No fun, police. I get that. But it does cause bad blood. It causes, some tensions and, but like you and I talked pre-show, what is the difference between the pitcher or the hitter bat flipping, or if the pitcher strikes out the batter with the bases loaded and he comes off pumping his fist and screaming at the top of his lungs? There's no difference. There's no difference.
Yeah, and you mentioned, as we were talking before, where do you draw that line then? If they can't, how are you going to legislate the bat flip? Well, there are plenty of guys, if you will watch any game, obviously, guy you mentioned earlier, Tim Anderson's out here slinging the bats to the moon.
Oh, yeah.
But there are plenty of guys that just crush balls and just leave the bat there. And there are plenty of guys that just do that and then they walk right down.
They walk,
yeah,
right.
They'll walk and, take a nice look and have a nice stroll in the park. But, it's, if you can't flip the bat, what are you supposed to do with it?
Yeah, what are you supposed to do? I mean,
and it gets into this weird territory where you're legislating, how far are you going to legislate it? Are you going to? Yeah, are you going to legislate? The excitement level that certain players and kids can have.
People talk about it falling under the category of it's unsportsmanlike. It's unsportsmanlike. And if you're in college football, if you do anything unsportsmanlike, it's a 15-yard penalty. And I get it. But what's the penalty if you flip a bat?
Yeah, we were trying to figure that out before.
I don't know what the penalty would be.
Yeah, we were trying to figure it out. My first thought was, is it an out? That seems a little bit too drastic.
Can't do that.
My next thought was, okay, do you ding him like a strike so the next guy comes up 0-1? I don't know if that's it.
No,
it's just
can't do that either.
Yeah, there's the reason it works in football is because it's a completely different sport and the rules are set up that way.
Completely different sport and there's a different, right. It's completely
built
different.
for those kind of rules and those kind of
that was an interesting one. Another person suggested to get rid of walk-up music, between innings music. And I understand what they're not actually talking about getting rid of it, but in youth baseball, fields are pretty close together. So when somebody is blasting music on one field between innings, the other field is actually trying to play the game. So I get what they're talking about with that. Again, no fun police, right? These people over here want to play their music and have fun and enjoy it. But yet, are you being fair to the team that's on the other one? Because maybe the coach is trying to yell out some instructions to his team and he can't get it to him because they can't hear him because of the music.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. When I saw you wrote down walk-up music, I was very confused at what people were trying to create rules about. But from a practicality standpoint, that one makes sense. I don't know if you're going to see tournament providers basically saying, all right, you can't bring speakers in because there's also like the in between games, they're warming up.
Yeah, I don't think
that
you'll ever see that, but I mean, it is definitely something. And I had to at TBS Nationals last year. I had to talk to a team and have them turn it down a little bit because there was other games going on, and they were complaining that they couldn't hear what the coach was trying to give them instructions for. So I think that's kind of a case by case basis with your tournament director. Now, this last one is something that really caught my attention, and hopefully the coaches out here pay attention to this one, and this one has a little ground in my eyes, and that's for 12U elite major teams to experiment with 5480 base dimensions, 54 pitching mound, 80-foot bases. And this one has got my attention a little bit because, with the way the bat technology is today and the way these kids train, these 12-year-old fields, which were fine 10 years ago, have almost become too small for the elite 12-year-old programs. Now you've got 12-year-old kids, throwing upwards of 80 miles an hour from 50 feet, which equates to, almost a 100-mile-an-hour fastball for a 12-year-old to hit it. Again, everything's not for everybody, and we're not talking about your parks and rec type teams, but you're talking about the teams that can play at that high level to play at that 5480. And that is something that interests me.
Yeah, we were talking before about basically the transition between 12 to 13, and if a lot of the elite level 12U teams playing 50-70, when they go up to 13s, are jumping to 60-90, or they have this in-between time that they are trying to figure out, trying to get their team ready for that next jump up. When you were explaining it to me earlier, it made a lot of sense. For all the reasons that you just said. Where we couldn't figure this out, and if anybody has the right answer, we'd love to hear it, is at what point do you go 54-80? Is it the entirety of the season? Is it halfway through the season? Is it... Because we couldn't really figure it out, because your first instinct would be, okay, the fall after, but at that point, fall after their 12U campaign, but at that point, they're playing into the next age division. Later in the summer, they're playing at all the elite level tournaments. So sure, they may be playing a more even field, but you're going to jump up to a different field size in a big stage like that. And that was very interesting how we couldn't really figure out what the specifics
of that
The
problem is that I think the coaches would be hesitant about bouncing back and forth between 50-70 and 54-80 during the season. It's tough to you're trying to equalize because the game it's too big, too strong at 12. And I think 12 is the only problem. I think 12 is the only problem. But the coaches, I don't think, are going to want to go back and forth 54-80, 50-70. So, for example, let's say, hey, you know what, Anthony? I'm going to put on a 12U 54-80 tournament in May next year. Would some teams be interested? They would. But I think that they would be hesitant because they think they're going to screw up the boys hitting, their pitching. But I don't think that's a problem at the high-level major teams. Listen, if you can hit, you can hit. If you can pitch, you can pitch. But I think something needs to be done at that 12-year-old level, especially because the boys are just too big, too fast. The way they train nowadays, the bat technology is just, incredible. These kids are now 12-year-old fields were built years ago for 200-foot fences. And now, with the way it is today, that's a check swing pop-up gets out of the park. So you can move the fences back to 250. And I still think you're finding that out today. We just got a comment here from Tony Leonard. Tony Leonard's with the Motor City Hot Dogs. Tony, hey, thanks for checking in on the show tonight. I appreciate it. And he actually has got an idea. He would like to see the 12 and up swing BB Core, especially with all the reclassified players. That's an option. It would even the field a little bit more, like he says here. And I would agree with that. You're going to swing BB core at 12 and up. But here's my problem with that, Tony, is your whole team might not be able to swing the BB core. So maybe 4 or 5 kids, maybe your top 4 or 5 kids can swing that BB core, but it's not for everybody. So we've all swung, that's been in the game, swung those BB core bats. It's like swinging a wet noodle. And, you know, at the end of the day, if the kid's not having fun playing baseball, he's not going to play. So if you make a 12-year-old team swing BB cores, then you might see some kids fall out of the game. Now, I will say this, and maybe this is what Tony is referring to, is you can swing the BB core on the 50-70 field. That might be an idea.
So instead of changing the field dimensions, you're changing the
changing the bat,
which would impact the bigger, faster, stronger, too much power that you were referencing earlier on one side, though.
Yeah, and see that way now you're not having the coaches go back and forth and say, hey, you know what, the pitching difference is different, the hitting is different. You know, we could just swing the BB cores and that will even the field out there for one tournament. So that's nothing you would do all year long. I think USA Baseball, they implemented those bats a couple of years back and made them swing it the whole entire year, and it was awful. It was awful. But you know what? If you got the big boys together on one weekend and said, hey, you know what? We're going to swing BB core. I don't know if they'd get in, but man, I think that would make it for a more exciting and more fun tournament. And it evens out the grade eligible kids. Something to think about.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's something to think about. I might look to put something that in play for 2022 or even in the fall of 2021. Maybe that's something we do. So, all right, folks. Well, listen. Hey, this has been fun. We're going to move on now to probably what everybody's tuning in for is our top plays for the month of March. And listen, when we get this going, we're already taking plays for April. I've got probably already 10 plays for the month of April for top plays. Email us your plays at thelineup@athletx.com. And we went through our response from this past March was overwhelming, more than I anticipated. We probably got 70, 80 videos that we went through to get down to our top 10. So if some people out there didn't make the top 10, don't be discouraged. If you see another top play or if you had one from this weekend, send it to us. You can get it to us at the lineup at athletics.com. Before we get into that, I just got a ticket text here about somebody that wants a rule changed, and I agree with them in this one. When a kid hits a home run and the umpire calls him out because one of the players touched him before he was able to get to the plate, yeah, we need to change that rule.
That seems like one of those rules that's just been around forever and hasn't really been on the forefront of everybody's mind.
Yeah.
It's one of those that you only think of when it impacts your team
as an umpire, I know why they do it, so they can see him touch home plate. But listen, if a kid gives him a high five or taps him on the helmet before he touches home plate and you can still see home plate, come on, stop. What are we doing here? What are we doing? Stop it.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get going.
All righty. Let's do it.
All right, we're going to go with our top 10 plays. We're going to start off with number 10 from Texas. Shortstop from Dynasty Black is Blake Howard with diving catch up the middle. At number 9, we have Roman Garcia from Kangaroo Court with a mammoth home run. And if you were wondering if it ended the game, it did. Kangaroo Court went on to win it all. Our next play is a pop-up up in the infield. And watch the catcher from Vegas lay out to make a fantastic play. Great effort by that young man right there. Number 7. Watch Logan Holmes from 11U Icon Legends time up the catcher in order to steal home with ease. Number 6. Let's turn to softball. This is Indiana Phoenix Kylie Fisher with the first career home run. What a great feeling from that young girl, and a memory I'm sure she will never forget. as her teammates wait to congratulate her at home plate. Congratulations to her on her home run. At number 5, one of the best plays in baseball, the squeeze, or in this case, the safety squeeze. Harris Clark easily scores on Owen Bex as Owen Bex gets the job done from the 12U Carolina Blue. Number 4, talk about a no-doubter. Check this out. The right fielder never even moves as Rafael Valdevanos hits an absolute bomb to help his Motor City Hit Dogs to victory with a 3-run blast. Rounding third and seeing teammates waiting is a great feeling for that young man. Number 3, this is 7-year-old Bo Miller from the 7U Dadeville Tribe from Alabama with his first career over-the-fence home run. He's raising his coach's ERA with that shot, but I'm sure the coach doesn't mind. Look how much these kids enjoy the game. Coming in at number 2 is a kid who pulls double duty. This is Jensen Morneau, first with an outstanding effort off the mound, and then with an incredible effort at second base to get the runner by a step. Wow. And this is number 1. Wait till you see this. This is a 7U MVP hustle from California. A ground ball to Andy Maglanos, who flips to Brandon Garcia for 1, who turns to Adam Baca for 2, who then has the baseball IQ to throw home to catcher Alex Akros, who applies the tag to complete the triple play. Folks, that was a 7-year-old team from California turning a routine, and I say routine, triple play. What an amazing, amazing top 10 that we had.
Oh, yes.
And listen, folks, again, we're already taking plays for our April top plays that we'll be hosting at the end of April. And if you have a top play that you come across, home run, exciting home run, or a top defensive play, be sure to email that to the lineup at athletx.com. Well, that does it for tonight. Anthony, thanks for joining us. We are coming to you live from the Athletx Sports Group studios here in Louisville, Kentucky. Now, everyone go and enjoy the Elite Eight and watch some basketball tonight, and we'll see you back here next week at 7 o'clock with some new topics on the youth baseball side. Thanks, everyone.